Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Girivaradhari Jai Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janara Jana Yashodanandana Braja Naranjana Chamuna Tera Vanachari Chamuna Tera Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Radha Radha Nath Radha Radha Nath Radhe Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jai Prabhupada Nitai Gaura Haribo 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo Prabhupada Ki Jai Gopamanande Hari Haribo. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to today's session of the Light of the Bhagavad. So we'll start off with some prayers. Om Jnana Timirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamaya Tadati Swapidantikam He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostate Taptakanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusate Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchikalpatarubhescha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavinibhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, analogy 24, the light of the Bhagavad. When the Lord entered the forest of Vrindavan, all the inhabitants of the forest, both inanimate and animate, were eager to receive him. He saw that the flowers of the forest, all fully blossoming, were weeping in ecstasy, honey flowing down their petals. The waterfalls on the hilly rocks were gladly flowing, and one could hear the sweet sound from the caves nearby. Right, and as you can hear, the birds are chirping here as well. Right, so let's see now the purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The Lord has multifarious energies, and therefore the Lord and his energies are identical. Among his various energies, the material energy is one, and it is said that in the Bhagavad Gita that the material energy is inferior in quality to the spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is superior because without contact with the spiritual energy, the material energy alone cannot produce anything. But the source of all energies is the all-attractive personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. This material world is a combination of matter and spirit, but the spiritual world, which is far, far away from the material sky, is purely spiritual and has no contact with matter. In the spiritual world, everything is spirit. We have already discussed this. The personality of Godhead, the original source of all energies, are able to convert spirit into matter and matter into spirit. For him, there is no difference between matter and spirit. He is therefore called Kaivalya. In Lord Shri Krishna's transcendental pastimes, he reciprocates with spirit, not matter. When he is in the mortal world, the material qualities cannot work upon him. An electrician knows how to take work from electricity with the help of electricity and can turn water into cold or heat. Similarly, the personality of Godhead can turn matter into spirit and spirit into matter by his inconceivable power. Everything is therefore matter and spirit by the grace of the Almighty. Although there is a difference between matter and spirit for the ordinary living beings, flowers, waterfalls, trees, fruits, hills, caves, birds, beasts, and human beings are nothing but combination of God's energy. Therefore, when the personality of Godhead appeared before them, they all became spiritually inclined, and by natural affection, they wanted to serve the Almighty in various capacities. There are different stages of spiritual development in matter. In the material world, the spiritual spark of the personality of Godhead is covered by the material energy in different proportions, and gradually they become spiritualized in various species of life. The human form of life represents the complete development of the senses for spiritual realization of one's original affection for the Lord. Therefore, if despite this opportunity for human life, we are unable to revive our natural affection for the Lord, we must know that we are wasting our lives for nothing. By the grace of the Lord, however, the spiritual consciousness of every species of life can occupy its proper place, and these species can express their spiritual affection for the Lord in the Shantaras as displayed by the land, water, hills, trees, fruits, and flowers of Vrindavan during the presence of the Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So, devotees, just to comment on these purports, I thought we'll read, we'll go through the purports again, and as we read, I'll try to explain. But first of all, I just want to say that, there are many energies of the Lord, but they will be focusing on two of the Lord's energies, which is the Antaranga Shakti and the Bahiranga Shakti. We won't go into details with all of that, but we'll just try to comment on these purports or the paragraphs as Srila Prabhupada has given us. So let's do the first paragraph. The Lord has multifarious energies, and therefore the Lord and his energies are identical among his various energies. The material energy is one, and it is said in the Bhagavad Gita that the material energy is inferior in quality to the spiritual energy. Spiritual energy is superior because without contact with the spiritual energy, the material energy alone cannot produce anything, but the source of all energies is the all-attractive personality of Godhead, Shri Krishna. So we say in this, the first paragraph, that this material energy the Lord is talking about, right? It cannot work independently on its own because matter is dead, right? And matter cannot produce anything, cannot produce life. Like the scientists say that matter can produce life, but we know that matter is dead and it cannot produce life. It takes a spirit to move matter. Example, a machinery in the factory, right? The operator of the machine has to be there, and the operator is a person, is a spiritual spark, right? And he has to be there in order for the machine to work, because he can control the machine. So in that way, we see that matter is dead and it cannot work on its own. You are the spirit spark within this body. This body is dead, right? And when the spirit spark is out of the body, this body is dead. But as soon as the spirit spark enters the body at conception, then the body begins to grow, right? Obviously, nowadays, we have Elon Musk, who is manufacturing different robots that can move on its own, right? And but it also has a limitation to it, right? So all these material objects have limits, and they're manufactured by a spirit soul, by a person who can program these machineries and for it to work on its own, right? We are encaged in matter, this body. It is said that it is easy to understand, right, that we are not this body, but people have been indoctrinated such that they think that they are this dead piece of matter, right? Which we are not. We are the spiritual spark within this matter, within the body. This is a material world. It's only matter. It's dark and it's dead. Only when the Lord glances upon material nature does she become activated, because by his glance, he injects the living entities into this material world. And that's how this material world is activated. So the second paragraph goes as follows. The material world is a combination of matter and spirit, but the spiritual world, which is far, far away from the material sky, is purely spiritual and has no contact with matter. In the spiritual world, everything is spirit. We have already discussed this. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, the original source of all energies, is able to convert matter into spirit and spirit into matter. For him, there is no difference between matter and spirit. He is therefore called Kaivalya. So we see that here Prabhupada is talking about the spiritual world, right? Like just as in this material world, everything is made up of matter. So similarly, in the spiritual world, everything is made up of spirit, right? In the spiritual world, you are your bodies because your body is spiritual, right? In this material world, we say we're not this body because we are spiritual sparks which is encaged within this body. But in the spiritual world, you are your body because the body is spiritual, right? And Srila Prabhupada says that we can also make this body spiritual. How? By having prasadam, honoring prasadam, by using this body 24/7 in the service of Krishna. We see that pure devotees have turned matter into spirit by following the rules and regulations of scripture. They have spiritualized their bodies, and in that everything they do is for the pleasure of Krishna. Therefore, when we come in contact with our spiritual masters, right, how do you feel? Don't you feel that you're not worthy of being in their presence? Because they are like such elevated souls, and you can feel the spiritual presence, right, when you're in front of your spiritual master. I remember the first time I came in contact with my spiritual master, just by him speaking to me, he wasn't even preaching. He was just like speaking to me. I was telling him about myself and our introduction basically, right? And I could feel a transformation within my body and my mind. I could feel that energy of peace enveloping me. I was going through a very rough period at that time. And just by his association, he transformed me. So we see like this, he was, it was just an ordinary talk. It wasn't preaching or anything of that sort, but that coming into his presence made such a big difference in my life. Obviously, it was because of his many years of him being a devotee and dedicating his entire life to Srila Prabhupada's mission. He, his worship of his deities, his preaching around the world, his, all his devotional service, it actually spiritualizes the body of the devotee for so many years. Like for 50 years, we just celebrated 50 years of Bhakti Chaitanya Swami, right? And we see that all these exalted souls have dedicated, have given their lives to Krishna, right? So, when my Guruji used to worship his deities, then myself and a few other devotees would go and watch him. And wow, oh my God, it was like such an experience. I haven't seen anyone worship their deities like, the way he does, with so much of love and dedication. And I aspire to be like him. But, we're so far from that. But, we can always follow in the footsteps, right? So Prabhupada says that, we can convert, Krishna can convert matter into spirit, right? Like when we do deity worship, right? So everything in this material world is material, is matter. But if it is used in Krishna consciousness, then it becomes spiritual. Like in deity worship, the deities are made out of wood, stone, paint, sand, etc. But because the devotees of the Lord, worship the Lord in that form, he turns those material objects into spirit, and the Lord accepts our worship through that. At installation, we do the pran pratista, asking the Lord to come and reside within the deity. So in this way, the Lord accepts our offerings. So the third paragraph, Lord Shri Krishna's transcendental pastimes. Here is in Lord Shri Krishna's transcendental pastimes, he reciprocates with spirit, not matter. When he is in the mortal world, the material qualities cannot work upon him. An electrician knows how to take work from electricity. With the help of electricity, he can turn water into cold or heat. So yes, so just as an expert electrician can use electricity, and he can produce cold and heat from the same object or different objects by using electricity. So similarly, also Krishna can do like this. So because where is the electrician getting his knowledge from? He's getting it from Krishna, right? Similarly, the personality of Godhead can turn matter into spirit and spirit into matter by his inconceivable powers. Everything is therefore matter and spirit by the grace of the Almighty. Although there is no difference between matter and spirit although there is a difference between matter and spirit for the ordinary living beings, right? So in Krishna's eyes, nothing is, everything is spiritual. Like in this material world, if we use everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, then what's material in this world? We just have to change our consciousness, right? We just have to change our consciousness and do everything for the Lord's satisfaction. So then Prabhupada goes on to say, flowers, waterfalls, trees, fruits, hills, caves, birds, beasts, and human beings are nothing but a combination of God's energy. Therefore, when the personality of Godhead appeared before them, they all became spiritually inclined, and by natural affection, they wanted to serve the Almighty in various capacities. So all these elements that Prabhupada is speaking about here, the waterfalls and the hills and the caves, right? These are all natural elements. And when it comes into contact with Krishna, so especially, the human beings, the birds, beasts, the caves, all these, they have natural affection for the Lord and want to serve him in their various capacities. Just like when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was passing through the Jarikanda forest, then all the living entities, the animals forgot their enmity for each other, and they all danced together. Like the deers and danced with the lions, the tigers with the bears, and other animals. They forgot their enmity, and they would normally eat one another, but they began to dance because the holy name transformed them. Right? Just like the flowers, waterfalls, hills, and caves worship the Lord in Shanta Ras, or in neutrality, according to their own capacities, right? So the human beings have developed senses, right, and higher intelligence, and can offer much more to the Lord than the hills and the caves like that, because we can offer our love to Krishna, right? I gave a class on Govardhan Puja and related some pastimes of Krishna in the caves of Govardhan Hill, as it was told by His Holiness Indradumna Swami. Right, Govardhan Hill also offers the residents of Vrindavan trees for shade, fruits and flowers, grass for the cows to eat, the caves for Krishna and the gopis to have their pastimes, the clear lakes for them to drink water and splash about. Also, as a shelter from the torrents of devastating rain that Indra had sent, right, to destroy the inhabitants of Vrindavan, she gave them shelter. So the birds also sing beautifully, and they give the divine couple pleasure just by singing, like Srimati Radharani, she has a pet parrot, and he would carry news to Krishna, like, where they should meet, and, things like that, right? So that's a whole different story. But just to encapsulate or just to share the pastime of the parrot of Radharani, this parrot, or Sukha, another name for a parrot is Sukha, that's in Sanskrit. And so he was sent by Srimati Radharani to take a message to Krishna. But before he could go to Krishna, he came across Lord Shiva narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife Parvati. So it so happens that Parvati fell off to sleep, and the parrot did not want to miss the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So he imitated her voice as she would reply to Lord Shiva by saying, like, to basically to show that she's understanding whatever he's saying. And she fell asleep. So the parrot started to imitate her like this. And it so happened that towards the end, Parvati got up and from her sleep, and she apologized to Lord Shiva that she had fallen asleep. So Lord Shiva asked her that, if you were asleep, then who was it that imitated you? And just then he saw the parrot, and he chased the parrot with a trident. He chased the parrot, and the parrot flew into the ashram of Vyasadeva. Right. So when and there Vyasadeva was also narrating Srimad Bhagavatam to his wife, who also fell asleep. Right. But she had her mouth open So in order to take shelter, he flew into her mouth and entered her stomach. And he didn't come out for 16 years. He felt that if he came out, he would be contaminated by the modes of material nature. So this story is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, that Sukadev Goswami, Sukadev, the son of Vyasadeva, he was in his mother's womb for 16 years, and he didn't want to come out, right? And as soon as, after 16 years, as soon as he came out, and he was grown as 16 years, he grew to the age of 16, and immediately, and he left home, right? And then we understand that he went to the banks of the Ganges, and there he narrated the Srimad Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit, who was cursed to die in 7 days, right, by the Brahmin boy Shringi. So this pastime of his being cursed is there in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and we should try and read that in order to get more information, right? So we see that Sukadev Goswami, he narrated the Srimad Bhagavatam, not one, so he narrated the Bhagavatam to Maharaj Parikshit, but not once did he utter the name of Srimati Radharani, okay, because he was Srimati Radharani's parrot, right? Remember, I told you. But he was very devoted to Srimati Radharani, and he knew that if he would utter her name, he would go into ecstasy, and if he goes into ecstasy, then he wouldn't be able to relate the pastimes. Therefore, he avoided using her name, so he could narrate the pastimes without any interruptions. So so just to give you a background on Sukadev Goswami. So let's just read the last part of this purport. There are different stages of spiritual development in matter. In the material world, the spiritual sparks of the personality of Godhead are covered by the material energy in different proportions, and gradually they become spiritualized in various species of life. So here the jiva, Prabhupada is talking about the jivas in this material world. We are spiritual sparks, but when we fall into this material world, then we are covered by different bodies, right? Different dresses, as to say. The human form of life represents the complete development of the senses for spiritual realization of one's original affection for the Lord. Therefore, if despite the opportunity for the human life, we are unable to revive our natural affection for the Lord, we must know that we are wasting our lives for nothing. So, dear devotees, we have taken birth in this material world, and our prime duty in this material world is to gain affinity to hear the messages of Vasudeva, right? There's a verse in the Bhagavatam like that. So we must hear the verse of the Bhagavatam, listen to the Bhagavatam, listen to classes on the Bhagavatam, and become attached to devotional service and go back to the spiritual world. And if we do not do this, and if we waste our times in other ways, in other activities, then it's like we just wasted this human form of life. And who knows, we could have, risk being born as animals again. So what is the use? This human form of life is meant to go back to the spiritual world, and no more births and deaths in this material world. But if we do not utilize this form, then we are simply wasting our time here, right? So let's carry on reading a few more lines. Therefore, by the grace of the Lord, however, the spiritual consciousness of every species of life can occupy its proper place, and these species can express their natural affection for the Lord In the Shantaras, as displayed by the land, water, hills, trees, flowers, and fruits and flowers of Vrindavan during the presence of Lord Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. So yes, so this Shanta Ras is also in the spiritual world, right? And it is displayed by the by the natural, beauty of the spiritual world, like the waterfalls, the caves, the trees, the like this. So, but the but those in so different rasas, right? As parents, as lovers, as friends, like this. Then we have like intimate connection with Krishna and intimate relationships with Krishna. In this way, interactions with Krishna, right? And yeah, and in this way, we can make our lives perfect and go, and our spiritual bodies are already there. All we need to do is, revive this lust consciousness, right? Revive our lust relationship with Krishna and go back to the spiritual world. So we need to revive that, right? So we'll stop here now. And if anyone would like to add to this, you're most welcome to do so. Hare Krishna. Anyone? Paramatma Prabhu, you can go first.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the class. Namaji, you're talking about Srimad Bhagavatam, and we are also getting a lot of nectar, as you mentioned, from Maharaj's classes.
Mm-hmm.
And we're so fortunate that everything's online now, and we got so much of time that we can catch up on. There's even pre-recorded classes, and even now we're fortunate to get. Even now we're so fortunate that you're even reminding us about about the importance of hearing and reading, and we just have to keep at it, I think, with faith and determination.
True. Yes,
thank you so much.
Especially the second canto talks about hearing, about the hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam and how important it is to hear the Bhagavatam, right? So anything else? Anyone else? Charmaine?
Hare Krishna. I just wanted to contribute, just a small contribution. In this material world, everything is so contaminated, and you can get so caught up in the entanglement of all the material, but when we use everything for the pleasure of Krishna, and we use, for Krishna conscious, it becomes very simple and easy. Like our relationships in general with whoever, are they contributing towards, are they contributing, like, for us to evolve in Krishna conscious, or are they dragging us down, So it's just something that I wanted to.
Yes, so that is why we should keep good association, so that we could develop our consciousness, right? So yes, so everything in this material world, it has its use, and for the pleasure of Krishna. Okay, Kajuta, Mataji, anything?
Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances, Mataji. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much for wonderful class. I have one question. You talk about the parrot of Srimati Radharani Shuka, her parrot, and he came here like Shukadev and stayed about 16 years in the womb of his mother, or 16 months. And what was the reason? Because he refused to came in contact with the gunas from here. He refused the material nature. For this, he stayed so long in the womb of his mother.
Yes, he's because he was, this material world is full of illusion, right? And yes, he didn't want to come out because he was like happy staying in the womb of his mother and listening to Bhagavatam. And, instead of coming out and being affected by the modes of material nature, like we are in this material world. Right, so therefore he wanted to stay, and as soon as he stayed, he came out of his mother's womb. He left home immediately because he didn't want to get entangled, by getting attached to his parents, like that, house and home. He didn't want to get attached, so he walked away from home like that. Although his father called after him, and he didn't turn back. He didn't want to come back. So. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Keshika.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for a wonderful class and always touching on the most important topics in remembering Krishna. The thing that stands out for me is we become very spiritual. We spiritualize our body when we eat Krishna conscious food, and we practice japa. And for me, what I'm grateful for, extremely grateful for, is that in following this path and becoming more conscious, Krishna has shown me the right people to associate with, and he's always kept me close to devotees. And I'm very grateful for those associations that I have that have always shed light on my pathway, no matter how difficult and challenging it may have been in the last couple of years. So I'm very grateful for that. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Keshika. Yeah. Although you in Canada now, you can still keep in contact with us. So that's very nice to have your association. Thank you.
Yes.
Naina Manjari.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you for a wonderful class today. Mataji, since you spoke so much about birds, the parrots, whatever, I just want to let you know something that I experienced a few weeks ago in the morning. When I do wake up, as you know, because of my hands, it's still in pain and it gets totally numb. So I'll normally lie in the bed and a massage. I try and exercise it to get back to feeling. So that particular morning, the sparrows were chirping, and then the miners came and they were screeching like hell. And I said to Krishna, you know what? I am not going to get out of this bed now because you sent the miners. What I want is for the sunbird to come and lie there on the electric wire and whistle beautifully. And I said, I refuse to get out of this bed. And Mataji, like 5 minutes later, it was like a miracle. And I just heard the sunbird whistling, and the whistling got louder and louder. And I lied in the bed and I was smiling to myself. I said, Krishna. And, it was like incredible. It was such a moment for me. And since that day now, like every time when I sit downstairs, I open our windows, now across from me, there's a lot of trees. But there's this one particular sunbird, when I'm chanting, I will hear it softly whistling in the back. Wow. And it's like a feeling I cannot explain, because at that moment I feel so ecstatic and I'm smiling and I'm chanting. And I feel like I'm getting like so close to Krishna, but yet I'm so far away still. But there's so much for me still to achieve and do. And it's going to take me a long time, I know that. But with my personal conversations with Krishna every night, in the middle of the night, in the morning, I know I will get there slowly. But thank you so much for such a beautiful class, Mataji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, yes. So, Krishna listened to you, and he came as a bird, as a sunbird, right? He came, and he comes and visits you every day. So Who else? Rajesh Shekhar Das, Prabhu, Haribol. Like to say something? Hare
Please
Krishna.
accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Yeah, I don't really have much to say. Just interested in the topic when you were speaking about material energy not having any power. I was reading Chaitanya Charitamrita today, this afternoon actually, and just the introduction in chapter 5, and it actually speaks there and says, Maya has is inert and has no power of her own. And only when Mahavishnu glances across to Maya does cosmic energy start to manifest. And like you're saying, without that spirit, there's no movement, there's nothing.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for your contribution. That's very nice that you read that today, and we spoke about it in class, right? The same thing.
Yeah, yes.
It always happens, whenever you read and you go to class, and then, the same thing is being spoken about. So Krishna is like, no, saying yes. He's like reaffirming your faith in that way. Yeah. Anything else, Denton? We didn't hear from you. Can unmute.
Hare Krishna. You're interesting, Mataji, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Please accept my humble obeisances. Mataji was chatting about the sunbird. We've got an old Hanumanji who came in today, and he came and he ate just some jungle oats. He came and he quietly walked out, and then I gave him a half an apple, and it was like a sign, It just reminded us. He just came to visit. And, to me, that's like a material thing, but it's also, you look at it through a spiritual manifestation, like, okay, well, that's a sign, he's come to visit. And yeah, it wasn't like Murti Hanuman coming and wrecking the place. Yeah.
He only came for the jungle oats.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, he's a spiritual spark as well. He's a Jiva. So yeah. So thank you all, everyone, for your contributions, and it was good listening to you as well. And we could learn from each other. So let's end now with a short kirtan. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
Mataji, we still
Hare
yes.
Krishna.
Vanchikalpatrubhescha,
Hare
Kripasindhubhevcha, Patitanam Pavinabhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Mataji.
Thank you,
Hari
Mataji.
Bol.
Hare
Thank you
Krishna.
very much for wonderful.